Hello, and welcome to the Divine Darkness podcast, where we are going to walk towards the light together, bringing in more awareness, opening our abilities, and discussing all different realms of spirituality. Take a seat, open your heart, and get ready for this energetic shift to happen. Okay, so welcome. My name is Erica. And I'm a psychic medium and a spiritual life coach, and I help people open their gifts to learn how to grow their intuition, connect with their higher self, and really all things spiritual. I do psychic medium readings, intuition, Reiki healing, and energy clearings, really all things spiritual, hypnotherapy. And our intention is to expose all the information that we know through experience, right? And Ashley is also in here too, so I'll give you a chance to speak. You just want to let us know, I guess, what you do, what your intentions are, and then we'll go back to getting into the deeper knowing.
So Erica's my mentor. I started working with her back in March, actually during her program on my birthday. And she has helped me open up my psychic abilities, which I've always had, but never really knew how to use. And my purpose that I've been stepping into is really shadow work, the dark feminine, and trying to help people transmute the darkness that they've gone through in life into light and healing. And so that's the journey I'm on, the path I'm pursuing, and I'm still working on that journey. And
Yeah, you've
go ahead.
that.
Go ahead.
You've actually helped me a lot working in my stage. So I think we both have aligned meeting each other in a perfect divine timing because, you know, with you joining my program, me helping you in certain aspect, but you now are helping me going into the phase of my stage where I'm walking into more of a darkness, but with the light, where I've always been in the light. And that's one thing I think I'm going to probably dive into is the fact that my awakenings really turned into just this light bulb of awakening of light. And I was in a higher realm all the time of being in that stage, even though I was working on a deep healing and shadow work. It was very surface though for me. And I think now I'm going into the physical of the deeper, darker, kind of rooted divine feminine energy. So you've been really helpful with that. And I'm sure throughout my journey, you'll continue because that type of knowledge has been a little different for me now. Obviously, I help people learn how to work on their ego and heal. I think where our stages are so different, typically people go through their stages first where they're going in the darkness. Now, for me, it blew my mind because as a medium and just connecting and being intuitive, I was so excited to just constantly be in that state of heightened outer body, so to speak, that I really had trouble being in the physical. And I think over my past year, just to give you an update on present, for me, it was very present of nope, spirit's taking you into the physical body right now because you have some physical things you need to deal with. And I think that makes sense for me because of the physical ailments that have been coming up. So now I am in the stage of the physical, where before I was in the more of the astral realm, so to speak, connecting to the higher 5D and dimensions. So no journeys, alike. Everybody has their own unique, special awakenings and enlightenments. But just to give you a background on myself, so you all can kind of relate and just maybe there's something that you could take out of this conversation that would help you go through your journey. But for me, I think, when I look at my version of who I am now, I'm like, who was I then? That just wasn't me, right? Like I've gone through so much self-sabotaging. But one thing that I did learn as a medium that every single time I suppressed my gifts, or every single time I, just didn't understand them, Spirit brought me right back, right back. And I was shown in the dream state. So the dream state opened that portal for me and really led me into who I am now because I feel consciously I was not aware. Consciously, I was intuitive, but shut it down, like very, very just suppressed. And obviously in my conscious day as a young teen with that information that I was getting in my dream state of certain particular things, such as, knowing when people were going to pass and seeing people that I didn't know in the afterlife that would come to me and send me a message to somebody that I knew freaked me out to a sense, not freaked me out with like I was scared of when it happened. It was more of like, I can't tell this person. Like they're going to be, what's wrong with her? So I was always in the state of being opposite, always in the state of being secluded, and always in the state of just, I'm suppressing it with everything you can think of, like not well in my teens. And I think that led me into, the deeper, darker stages of my life that I just moved through. And then I feel when my awakening really risen and when my reality kind of shook me, um, it was when I was in I would say I was about 25, and I realized that I was having an awakening when my grandmother passed away, and I saw something in the sky as she passed, and I was with her when she passed, and I still have it. It's a picture. It looks like an angel. Um, and that really made me believe again because I never really, to tell you the truth, believed. And it's I could just go on and on and on.
All you
But
need to
yeah, I never really believed in a faith. I never really had faith, and um I just had this journey of just living unconsciously. I had no meaning, no purpose. It was just constant self-sabotage. I had no self-worth. I had no nothing. I mean, it was not who I am now. Like I look
being
back and
asleep
I just
while
can't
you're
believe.
awake.
What was that?
Like being asleep while you're awake.
Oh, absolutely. I feel I lived like that. I was dissociated I was very dissociated and far from the reality of what was actually happening and just suppressing. But the dissociation actually was a big thing for me because when I became awake and when I had that experience with my grandmother when she crossed, I feel like everything shifted and changes and that changed. And I had this light bulb moment of I can help people and I can help myself and find more meaning. And I feel that really led me into connecting deeper into the reality of like spiritual connection with the afterlife, and things I couldn't suppress were still being shown in my face. Um, and I do feel like as I became more awakened and connected on a deeper level of shadow work, diving into that, I started realizing and remembering all the things I just dissociated from. One thing that I speak about too, and I'm really strong about because I feel a lot of the times when we are in this state of awakening, we tend to say to ourselves, my trauma is not big enough. My trauma is not important. There's bigger things out there. There's worse situations. So we suppress it even more. And I did that for a long time. I didn't complain about or speak about or think about anything that happened to me bad because it wasn't bad in my mind. It was like, get over it.
Than we do. So you invalidate yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is pretty much on a short edit of a lot of the stuff that I've experienced. But leading up to the present in the moment of like my aha moments, I would say my awakening was when I realized that I had a true connection with God on a deeper level than I ever realized or even knew about because I didn't believe. I did not believe in anything. I didn't believe in it. I didn't know why I was seeing, or connecting with the afterlife in my dreams. I believed that when we, crossed over, that we just went in the astral realm, which we do, but I didn't understand what that meant. I just was like, this doesn't make sense. I'm not learning about it yet. And so finally, I feel like that kind of pushed me into learning about it, into awakening. But the true awakening, and I'm going to just quickly sum this one up and I'll let you talk. But the true awakening was really when I had my daughter, and that's a whole nother can. But my daughter's awakening me was a soul deep past life journey because our soul ties came into play, our reasoning came into play because she awakened a lot for out of me just because she was who I was as a child, if that makes sense, meaning she
My
could
daughter as
see and
well.
connect. Yeah. So like the things I suppressed, I started seeing in her as a child, like her connecting with loved ones that crossed over. She was two, never met them. Dreams that she would have, or seeing our dog that crossed over, like things like that. I realized I'm not suppressing anymore. So it woke in me even a deeper level. So I do believe that taught me, I think our connection taught me about past life, taught me about contracts and our soul ties. So that's how it brought me into more growth, I guess, so to speak. So yeah.
I'm curious, when you started awakening, what were your steps into starting to learn that? Did you seek someone out? Did you learn by yourself? How did that
Yeah.
work?
Actually, no, I learned all of it. I did it on my own in the beginning, and I think that's probably, I don't want to say where I went wrong because I don't think anything was wrong, but I would say that when I started awakening and when I started like realizing all this stuff, um, especially when I had my daughter, I was more curious. I didn't reach out to anyone. I was seeking people, but I didn't put myself out there on social media. I wasn't like exposed as I was. Like it was really hard for me to be like, I'm a medium. Like it was really like, I felt like I couldn't say that. So I just kind of waited it out and learned on my own. And I feel I channeled on my own and did a lot of my own until I finally was like, I need more. And then I was like, I need more. And I'm just in this higher realm that I'm not going on a deeper level than I need. And I need that support. And that's when I reached out to Crystal as a mentor. Was phenomenal. She's still someone I look up to. She's really changed my life. Her program helped me grow so much that so she really made a big impact for sure. Started reaching out, and then eventually you align with the right people when you put these intentions in, right? And the vibrations match, where I started connecting with people that were local that I never even realized, or connecting back with people that I haven't seen in years that are now like trained healing Reiki teachers, or sound healers, and all these people that I actually knew in the past that I haven't seen in like 15 years came trickling in, which was wild to me. So I think when I reached out for support, it was a little later than most people, I believe. But I'm that type of person where I go against the grain. I do things on my own, and I like to be experienced, live by experience, then seek the knowledge first, or the connection first. That's just that type. I think human design has explained that to me better of why I do that.
Human design, like
What was it?
I've done the human design thing too. I forget like the different channels and stuff like that.
I completely forget. It was so elaborate, but I will say that for me, it was like made more sense. And I'm like, okay, and that's fine. Like there's people that don't. There's people that connect first with people, and then they build their own belief system off of that. And I feel like I do that to an extent, but typically if I want to channel or learn something, I will do it myself, and then I will seek other people's opinions or views. Because I don't like to be persuaded, right? Or like,
Yeah.
um, and I think that's just something that I do as a person in general with a lot of things in my life. But yeah,
I'm the same way. And I think so Erica is a Sagittarius and I'm a Sagittarius rising, and Sagittarius are very much, they are like the teachers of the zodiac. They're the ones that seek the journey, seek the knowledge, seek the understanding. They're very worldly. And so it's kind of like innate in us for us to chase this information on our own so that we can lead and teach others. And we both also have the Lilith and Aquarius, and Aquarius is very defiant, especially in Lilith. And it's very much so going against the grain and doing things that people don't expect and paving our own way. And so I think we have very similar energy with a lot of different things.
yeah,
So
I love that. So tell me a little of you then now. Let's hear some things about you. Where did you go in your journey, and how did your healing start?
So I was raised Methodist. My dad's a Southern Baptist. I'm thankful I was raised Methodist. My mother's Methodist because they're much more open-minded. than Southern Baptist, if anyone has experience with them. It's very much you read the Bible, you listen to your pastor, you don't ask questions. Never ask questions. You just do what you're told. Yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And my daddy, he's a sweetheart, but bless his soul, he was not prepared for me because when I was younger, I'd be like, so if God is all powerful, then how are things that he can't control? Or if God's all knowing, then how do we really have free will? If he's, supposedly like planned out our fate and our future, how is it that we still get to choose things? And I would ask him these things at like 6, 7, and he's like, child, please stop asking me questions like that. Um, and so I've always been just very curious and very, I guess I was religious, but I never felt God at church really. When I was like a teenager, we would go to like youth retreats and go like camping, and that's where I would feel God out in nature and just seeing like the beauty and the grandeur of things and really tapping in with, I guess, like Mother Nature and things like that. Things that are, I want to say less kind of just I wouldn't say made up if you understand what I'm saying, but things that feel more real, more grounded, more genuine than like, a church service where people have everything planned out and there's certain things you can and can't talk about and things like that. Um I guess when I was probably, I want to say in first or second grade, I had what I call I woke up. And this is not an experience that I've heard a lot of people speak about. I've actually seen only one other person on Facebook, I think it was, talk about the same exact experience I had, where I was in elementary school, and I was in line for the lunch line, and I remember all of a sudden my ears started ringing, my vision got fuzzy, everything became very loud all of a sudden, and what is strange though, the colors got darker. Like it felt like my world suddenly went from like carefree and happy and just like floating to like suddenly very aware of everything around me, very aware of my body, very aware of everyone around me. And it felt like my soul like just ricocheted inside my body and I woke up. Like I had not been awake before that. Um, and I remember sitting in lunch and just like looking at everyone and like suddenly being like, oh, everyone has a consciousness. Everyone has their own views. Like it's not, it's like I went from very selfish, very self-centered, like, as a child, everything's about you. And all of a sudden it's like, oh no, everyone else is living their own reality. And it was so bizarre. And I would just like watch the teachers and I was like, what are they thinking? What are they doing? What are they experiencing? And it was just very like I was in my body, but also I could suddenly put myself in other people's
Perspective.
experiences. Yes. And it was
Yeah.
so surreal. Um, and unfortunately, I went from very happy-go-lucky to I feel like that's when my journey into the darkness really started. Um, I grew up in not the best homes. Um, my mother is a covert narcissist. If anyone's aware of that, narcissism gets thrown around a lot these days. I have a degree in psychology, so not everyone's a narcissist. Everyone has narcissistic tendencies. She is a narcissist, like textbook narcissist. And so I had a lot of darkness in my home, um, quite literally. When I was a child, I used to have very, very dark, disturbing dreams. And there was this energy that used to come into my room that was very dark. I call it a demon. Um, and it would come into my room and watch me, and I would lie very still, all the hairs on my body standing up, pins and needles all over. And I would lie still and pretend to be asleep until it left. And it would leave. Sometimes it took a couple minutes, sometimes it took like 15 minutes, but it would leave. Um, and I would see like there was this little ghost girl that I would see in my house. I would see her in the mirrors. I would see her, well, I wouldn't see her, but she would push things off my shelf. Um, and I don't know, there was something attached to the land where I think I grew up because every house I would go into, I had several friends that lived on the same street. Every house that I went into on that street was just dark. even if all the lights were on, there was just a darkness, and it's still there, you know. I haven't been back to my parents' house in a few years, but every time I would go home, there's just darkness. There's the heaviness. And I never really knew how to explain it as a child, but I sensed it and I felt it and I knew it. And I didn't know what it was. And you know, growing up the way that I grew up, you know, you're supposed to stay away from dark things.
Mm.
But I was both terrified and very drawn to the darkness. You know, I loved witches since I was a child. I wanted to be a witch. I felt in my soul I was a witch. I actually did a spell in elementary school without even really knowing what I was doing. But looking back, I was like, oh, I did a candle spell
Mm.
and things like that. And so I had a lot of depression growing up. Um, and it got really, really, really bad as a teenager to the point where I was going to try and stop things
Mm.
myself. And I guess that's when I had my first biggest spiritual experience. I was going to do something dumb to stop all the pain. And right before I was about to, I had this booming voice come out of nowhere and what felt like a gush of wind without the wind. And it just said, stop. And I froze and I stopped what I was doing and I broke down. Um, and from that moment on, I was like, okay, God's real. I don't know if it's God. I think it was Archangel Michael, actually, as I got more connected with things down the line. But I was like, you know, I never really lost my faith in God. I would say I always believed in God, but I was very angry with God because I didn't understand all this pain and like suffering, like why me,
Yeah.
all these different things. Um, but from that moment on, I was like, okay, I'm supposed to stay alive. There's a reason, and I'm never gonna do stuff like that again. Um,
Mm.
my guys laugh when I say that because I did do stupid stuff to definitely put my life in danger.
Okay. But of course, I think we can all relate to that one for sure.
But never anything as overtly as I had done before that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Would you
so
call that your awakening?
I would call that probably my awakening. I feel like I woke up in elementary school, but that was
Yeah.
like my like come to Jesus moment. That was
Yeah.
my, you know, okay, this shit's real. This who hears a deep booming voice in the middle of the night out of
Mhm.
nowhere? I was like, I'm not crazy. Sometimes I feel crazy, but I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
So, well, first of all, thank you do you have more? Do you want to share more?
there's more.
Okay, go ahead.
But you can
I
go
have some
ahead.
questions.
Yeah, have questions. Ask them now.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I want to go back real quick to the elementary. I had a question on that. So, because I envisioned you what you just described, and I have a question. I wanted to know, what do you think or feel that was when that hit your soul? Do you feel that that was an entity?
I
Um,
feel like that was my soul awakening. So
like
I believe my
like an
soul was,
integration of
yeah,
something?
some sort of download, some sort of
Yeah.
like just
Oh,
something
okay.
like 100%.
Okay. And then I wanted to know, when you said that were seeing in the rooms of your place, and do you still see them, or did you only see them when you were on that street of your friend's house and stuff?
Only there, the only other place I've experienced that much kind of energy was actually when I lived in Norfolk, Virginia. So it's very old land there. And nothing to that extent. There was definitely a lot of, I see shadow people.
Yeah.
There's two different kinds of shadow people. There's shadow people that are more just like energy timestamps. So they're like these like rush of shadows that go by, and it's just old energy. That's all it is. And then
Mhm.
there's another kind of shadow people that are a lot creepier, which thankfully I've never seen them. But yeah, I've always felt energy. I've always experienced energy. And it, you know, as a kid, I was like, oh, I'm seeing these things because, you know, there's something wrong with me. I'm doing something bad, you know, I'm gonna go to
Yeah.
hell, all these different things.
So the depression though happened when you started after all this. And And I
Depression started
think
after I woke up, which
after you
is,
woke up,
yeah. And
yeah,
that's when I started seeing things is after I woke up.
yeah, yeah. Interesting. So I just always wonder the timeline of things, right? It's like, is there something that you're picking up throughout those moments, or is this actual your depression from this present life, or is this something that's from the past, or is this something that's picked up because you're an empath and because we're clear channels? All those thoughts come into play when we're, especially when we work with energy as we grow and we think of that, right? And those moments. And so I can't help but thinking of that. And then it obviously led you into working in the divine feminine, darker divine feminine energy, which makes kind of sense to where they would be brought in you through, right? Because your journey is more of like the divine dark awakening feminine, right? And my journey has been always like mediumship, connecting to the afterlife, awakening closer to God and helping others do the same. So, I feel my experiences when you talk about your childhood and all that, I think back of how mine was where it brought me always closer to God, right? It always brought me closer to the afterlife. So now as the present, we have to self-reflect and think, where were we when we were then? What was God or spirit teams trying to teach us into this present moment in our purpose? That's really, I think, when we do a life review or reflection of our timeline, it's really important to see the whys and the reasoning and then the meaning and the purpose bringing
But
you into the
I
present.
feel like I feel like I was always meant for the darkness, and that there's two different kinds of darkness. First of all, there's
Of
the
course.
darkness that's, evil, the darkness that's trying to consume you and all those things. And then there's the darkness that's just the opposite of light. You cannot have the light without the dark. It's yin and yang, both are vital. It's about, our dark feelings, our primal feelings, things that we, especially women, get told that we're not allowed to indulge in, our divine rage, our anger, our sexuality, all these
Yeah.
different things that are bad because of the patriarchy and things like that,
Mhm.
that we've just collectively have had to suppress since forever.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was pushed into the darkness and I was shown the darkest of the dark things to find comfortable, being comfortable in the darkness, which I am. Because our paths are very different. You're very comfortable in the light. I'm like, what is lightness? What's what's
Yeah.
ease? What's joy?
I'm
What's
very
all
uncomfortable.
that?
I'm very uncomfortable in the darkness because I know that it's unleashing a lot of stuff that I've suppressed. So that's
People
my
fear that.
journey present now. What was that?
People fear that within themselves.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that was something. I'm not afraid of my darkness. People, if people try to like offend me, I'm like, baby, I have looked at every shadow. I am comfortable with every flaw. I have looked at the darkest
Too.
of my
Yeah,
soul. And I'm
absolutely. And
comfortable.
the thing too is like we have to remember too, so one thing that was a struggle for me when I think of my darkness, it's not in the present life of what I experienced in this life, because I look back and yes, I had some really, really awful situations in my life that I could not believe that I'm even alive multiple times in my life. So, but I've gotten through, I can discuss, I can open up that it's not my necessarily this life, it's the unknown of my past that had my past lives that have been really suppressed and unleashed now and like been awakening that journey of the anger and rage that I've been carrying that I've suppressed with just bringing in more light, right? Like, so a lot of people, what is it, spiritual bypassing? Like people talk about this. And I always heard it, but I never realized that it was actually going through that, where I was just constantly like suppressing this fear of where's my rage coming from. And as you know, my journey, I would have a really hard time opening up to the sound healing of drums. It would bring me into a deep, dark state. And I would see these visions that were terrifying to me that I didn't want to see. So eventually I overcame it, could bring to the surface, and I realized a lot, and I learned so much from that. And I don't feel that same feeling that I felt. So really finding that light in that and just having all these goddesses and divine energies, Lilith coming forward. And I feel like I've had a lot of goddesses come forward, that I never even knew of who they were and never realized. And I was slightly kind of like taken back when it started happening and unfolding because I was like in a meditation and like a sound healing meditation and like going through this journey. And um, is it what is it?
I'll-
Kali. So I never knew who that was. Okay. So this is learning from experience. That's who I am. I'll see visions. I see things in my dreams. They come forward and I'm like, what do I feel like when they come forward? Making sure that I use my discernment. I felt such good energy from Kali, which my sound healer was like, oh, wow. Yeah, that's very interesting. And I'm like searching what she's about, and I couldn't believe it. And my sister was with me. She's like, wow, that's dark. And I'm like, guys, it's okay. Leave me alone. It's fine. But I felt so good in that energy with her. And she was showing me past lives and bringing up this feeling of just feeling unsafe and having a lot of anger from that. Because obviously, finding where is this coming from, I was just feeling unsafe as all of my past lives, just constantly evolving. And I'm seeing her walking forward, and she's got all these heads in her hand, and I'm like not scared. So I'm like, okay, I'm not scared. There's a reason why, right? She's showing me this journey of rebirth and bringing me into a state of like acceptance and also the darkness of death, right? But rebirth. And I was just really blown away by that. So I feel like the more I open up to that, the more that I embrace the anger or embrace anything from my darkness, because I don't feel like I said, this is stuff that I am familiar with in my present. Like it's not this lifetime. And so there's
Mhm.
different layers. Everyone's going to be like, oh, well, I healed this layer. I healed that. Well, there is something that you can go through that if you feel it's still coming up, it's most likely from your past life, past ancestral life, or you've carried it so many, incarnations, and you become unaware. And I think for me, it was the unknown of that, right? Because I'm like, well, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, no,
What,
no,
yeah.
100%.
Yeah, but we know what our darkness is here in this moment, meaning in this lifetime. Like I know my darkness of what I went through when I was younger. I know that I was not well, like mentally and emotionally, all of that, spiritually. I know that I did things that I shouldn't have, but I'm accepting of it. And I know that I put myself in situations and I forgave myself for those situations. But I didn't know what I did to my past life. So that was a little unsettling, but I think spirit has a way to show you in exactly divine timing of what your healing looks like and when,
Oh,
as long as you're open, as long as you are embracing that and being in that surrender mode. That's really when true healing takes place for sure.
um, yeah, so after a teenager, young adult, I've had many awakenings. I
Yeah.
tell people I have died and come back to life so many times because I've had a gazillion dark nights of the soul. I have a Scorpio moon, and Scorpio's literally the planet of death and rebirth. And so connected to my emotions and my feelings, that's something that's just always happened. Like I go through these very, very intense emotional experiences where I literally feel like I'm dying. Like either I wish I was dead or I feel like I'm dying. And then I get through the darkness and there's light on the other side and there's healing and there's a release. And every single time I go through one, I come back better, stronger, smarter, wiser. And I feel like, so I had, when I was early 20s, 10 years ago, actually, I had a Kundalini awakening with a special person. Um, and I didn't know what that was really. Um, I I know now what it was. And I also saw an aura, like literally, I can see people's aura, but not like literally physically, but I saw someone's aura, like physically,
Yeah.
literally for the first time ever after that. And I was like, whoa, buddy, what is this? Um, and after that, me and that person separated, and I met my husband, and I I lived very surface level for a long time. Um, I had a very slow awakening over these last 10 years where I went vegan. I started accepting that I'm a witch. I started accepting that part of myself. I started admitting it to people as casually as possible. Like you, if you're saying you're a medium, you know, you came out of the medium closet slowly. I came out of the witch closet slowly. Um, and I kind of started really allowing myself to not fear what has always been bad or dark or evil. And I stopped suppressing that part of myself. And it's funny, when I was younger, I would see things and I stopped letting that happen for a long time because it terrified the crap out of me. I wouldn't let spirits come through. Like I would banish ghosts and be like, don't you ever come back. And I stopped seeing them because I closed myself off. I learned how to do that just, on my own, how to stop them from coming towards me. Um, and then as I slowly, started looking into like witchcraft and I got into tarot and I started allowing myself to be open to these dark things again. I was like, wait a minute, I want to see ghosts again. And I like couldn't I couldn't get that channel to open again. I was like, I'm open, I'm ready. Where are you? Come back. And I just could not get that to open. Let's see here. I had my daughter back in 2020 during COVID, and I feel like that was kind of the beginning of another really dark period of my life. As much as my daughter was a pure light in my world, and she's like the greatest thing that's ever happened to me, it was also a catalyst of darkness. Shortly after she was born, I lost my grandmother,
Yeah.
who she was pretty much my mother to me.
Mm. No, it's okay.
I lost her and I went into a very dark, dark depression for a long time. Um, and I was really angry at her because I would try to talk to her. And I couldn't feel her. She
Mhm.
came to me once very shortly after she passed to say, look, I can walk well again. I can dance. I feel good again. And then after that, just nothing from her. And I was so angry. And I was like, where are you? I need you. I had no one else. Um, I stopped talking to my parents. I had to block them out of my life for lots of reasons. Um, Also, after she died, um, my husband and I started doing really poorly. We're getting divorced, and there was just so much darkness over the last 4 years. And last year, I was in the pits of it to the point where I felt as bad as I did back when I lived with my parents. It was like I woke up wanting to die. I wanted to go lay in the bath and never get up. And it was just really, really hard. Um, and I had all this anger that I've always been angry since, I was a kid. I just always had this rage and I didn't know where it came from, very similar to you. Um, and I really had to just, I didn't go anywhere. I would stay in my house for like months without leaving my house. Um, so I was very isolated, very alone, and Spirit likes to do this to me. Spirit likes to make me completely, totally alone. Because in past lives I had been very dependent on other people to kind of just bypass and get through life and not deal with my own things. And so in this life, I've come to realize that I have to be very alone when I need people the most.
Mhm.
Um, this has been a reoccurring pattern my whole life. Um, One that's made me very angry because I'm someone, if you're in the pits, I will come sit next to you until you're not in the pit anymore. And every single time I've been in the pit, there's been no one there.
Have you, when you go through these darker stages, seems like you're a professional, right? You've gone through a lot of dark moments where you kind of shelter, isolate, and I feel like you just said, you have this pattern. Have you reached out to mentors? And I'm sure you have, obviously, because that's how we met. But my question though is, I feel now, do you know how to navigate
Oh,
those dark moments, right? because
100.
you have been brought these moments, right? You're aware of this pattern, you know how to get in through it, and now you're seeing the light in that tunnel. So I feel like I have chills saying that because I do feel like that is that broken
Yeah.
pattern. You've awakened from that because if you've had carried this type of depression or any type of darkness throughout it and always overcome it, and now you're like, why is it happening again? It's like, okay, now I have the tools to navigate through this. Now I know I'm not alone. And I think when they put you in that isolation mode and like they're like, hey, you're finding it within. You're finding it within and it's you. It's not others, right? This validation or seeking and having that, but also having the support, like I said, through those the spiritual community is huge, not isolating fully, but
And I didn't realize how much I really needed that. It's been so helpful to, because like I don't really have anyone quite like me in my life, no one that's really as spiritual or woo-woo or tapped in as I am. And last year when I was going through the very pits of the darkness, I was getting all these physical ailments, like my hair was falling out, my joints hurt, I had heart palpitations, I just had all these physical health problems manifesting from this just spiritual darkness that I just could not shake. Um, and I went to an acupuncturist for the first time, and it was like the floodgates open after like our third time together, and I couldn't suppress my feelings anymore. I couldn't just disassociate all day long because every time I'm stressed out, I disassociate. And that's a trauma response, that's how I grew up. And, so is the isolation. Like when I was a child and I had big feelings, I was sent to my room to deal with them alone. So it's childhood trauma
yeah.
mixed with me needing to learn how to handle the darkness by myself. And it's funny, I have a psychology degree, but I've never actually spoken with a therapist, which I feel weird admitting to people, but it's kind of like I've always been my own therapist. I've always processed things on my own. And, over the last 2 years, I've learned to use the universe, use spirit as my therapist. And, I go
Yeah.
and walk all the time, and that's when I have my therapy sessions. I talk to spirit. I say, hey, what the hell is this? Help me understand it. And by the end of my 2-hour walk, I'm in a much better place and I
And I
understand.
think that's my whole point of asking. It's like now you know how, what
I
is
know.
your tools? How would you, so my question to you is like you're saying you have the tools. What are those tools for you? Walking, getting out and being
Walking,
in that
getting out.
space.
I had to accept that I do have to meditate sometimes. I don't know why I've always been so resistant to meditation. I think it's because I have ADHD and just literally sitting still there. Like I cannot just be still unless I get in the bath. I like to meditate in the bath because I can't go I can't go anywhere. Plus water is like a spiritual conduit. So but I learned that I had to walk while trying to meditate because I
Yeah.
had to get my brain to kind
But
of focus on two different things. So my monkey brain would focus on walking, whereas my spiritual part of my brain could focus on channeling
yeah.
and things like
And
that.
that's, as you know, obviously that's a form of meditation. And,
Absolutely. I
you
didn't
know,
know that was an option. I thought I just had to sit there peaceful and not think about anything, which I could
no,
not.
and that's not
Could not.
actually possible. You don't sit there and think about nothing, right? Like, but your physical body, if you need to move it, of course, that's the form of like yoga or doing stretching, walking, working out, like that physical thing, taking a bath, even in the shower, sending your intentional healings, doing all of that with the water element, I think is so important. And that is a form, of course, of meditation. Now, obviously, some people really need,
People don't really teach that too often.
yeah.
Um, so every time I hear someone like, "Oh, I can't meditate," I'm like, go walk,
Yeah.
and don't think about anything else."
And I think too is the meditation will fall when you need it because what happens is people go into a state, especially if they're working on healing, it's difficult for obviously you to sit with your mind and your thoughts and in emotional, mental, spiritual way where you are going to get frustrated. You're going to have all these emotions come out because you have expectations and you're kind of judging how it should go. Where I always say, and I'm sure you've seen it in the program or have heard from me, where I just say, listen to calming music while you're driving in the car. Listen to calming music before you go to bed, 5 minutes. Say a bedtime prayer with some relaxing music. wake up first thing in the morning and just listen to something relaxing. Being in those still moments in the just a little bit helps you and regulate your body. So then when you do feel like, okay, I want to listen to a guided meditation and go to my Akashic records, or I want to listen to my guided meditation and go into my heart center to ask a question. I think it's important too, because you have to have that balance for sure. But I think not everybody is just going to jump into meditation and be like
I was like,
comfortable.
that was like the one thing I was resisting, and spirit was always like, you need to meditate, you need to meditate. And I was like, fudge off, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
it's so wild how so many journeys are so different because complete opposite for me. It was
yeah.
I worked on my ascension and spirit messages and opened that portal to the point where I was meditating for an hour, connecting. Just that's all I did. Meditate hour in the morning, hour at night. I mean, I'm not kidding. It was like I was not in this realm of life in reality, 3D, to the point where I was just so up in space, up above and outer body all the time that I was just so not in the emotional state point where I was healing deep layer wounds. I thought I was, right? Like I'm like, I didn't realize. So um it's just wild to look back. And sometimes I look back and I get a little or sometimes when I am now in the moment, I look back and I'm a little frustrated because I think, well, I wish I could just get to that point again. And then I'm like, nope, spirit's bringing me back down. Got to stay back down for a moment. It's okay. It's going to be all fine. There's a better ascension coming forward, right? Like making sure that even if you are in the moments of your life where you feel like you should be a certain way or it should be a certain particular expectation, you always have to remember that something is planning and lining up for the better. And no matter which way, whether you get there in a month, in a week, a day, it is going to go through an ascension higher, better. Like if, as long as your intentions are good, as long as your heart's pure, as long as you are aligning and taking action in certain things, I think it's just important to remember that when we are also awakening, like you're doing a certain particular thing for yourself when you're in the darkness, I feel like for me, this is new to me. So for me, I'm really making sure that I meditate. I know you're talking about like not being able to, but I'm really making sure that I take the time to meditate and to honor whatever is coming forward. And just whether it's journaling, whether it's lighting a candle, like today I woke up and I needed to do my crystal grid. I was like, I'm feeling a little like weird. It's the portal. Let's bring in Archangel Michael. And I didn't, I mean, Archangel Metatron. And I realized today was the 1212 portal, which is all about intentional manifestation, connecting to the high 5D alignment in the highest version of this physical form, meaning that's what Michael, Archangel, I keep saying Michael, but Archangel Metatron is. And so I did my crystal grids, lit my candle, did that little thing. And that was enough for me. I did a little meditation and did that. And that was enough for me to just honor the whatever feelings I was feeling. Now, I will say I got out of that rut that I was in like a week ago, month ago, and I will say it. What really helped me, I guess, going through the darkness was knowing that it's not lasting, honoring it, and knowing this is working up for something bigger and far beyond better than I can even comprehend right now. And so every time I was feeling slight depressed or slight like stuck or just feeling like, what's the point of everything? I was having that thought a lot, which is not like me. What's the point of this? And I already knew what the point was because I know my why. But I kept on asking, and I'm like, why is Spirit making me ask, what is the purpose? What is the point? And I'm like, but you know what? I know my why, I know my intention, and I know that Spirit's aligning me for something bigger and far better than I can even fathom. And that I can sit back and look a year from now and say, oh, wow, I wish I could just meditate for an hour like I used to. And I'm like, well, guess what? Maybe I'm meditating more. Maybe something else is going to happen. Maybe I don't need to sit there and meditate. Maybe it's just going to happen with a light switch, right? Whatever that looks like. Just really being open and knowing that it's a phase, knowing that it's a transition.
Yeah, and I feel like, for this year, the whole lesson of surrender has been patience and surrender has been the most heavy pounded message into me,
Mhm.
probably what I'm most resistant to. I like to control things and I have zero patience. I want things I want them now, I want them to go because
Definitely the yin yang.
I have very good foresight. So I'm like, okay, I know we're gonna get to this point. So can we just get there right now? And Spirit's like, no. No,
I
you
will
have
say though, Ashley, I think it's so
to feel
interesting
it.
because we
Mhm.
do have obviously a lot in common, but we are definitely yin yang because I feel like I have always been able to surrender and to be able to just be in that space where I don't need to know. I am not someone that's like making
I
a vision
have to
and
know
planning. I
everything.
don't. I don't. I can be like, I can wing things, and I love that feeling of not being in control where everyone around me, I feel like, is that person of controlling things. So I kind of like just sit back. Now, I will say, in my younger years, that did take up a lot of space in my solar plexus of my own personal power. Now, it definitely worked against me in ways of not being able to discern and always falling on other people's opinions, other people's, doubting myself.
When you
So,
say that, I feel me trying to control thing is taking away my power. So it's the same but different.
of
It's me
course,
trying to just hold on and make things go how I want it to go. That was disempowering me. And the more that I let go, the more I surrender, the more powerful I feel.
absolutely, because you can have your solar plexus off balance with having lack of and having obviously more of. So, yeah,
Yeah, and it's just I feel like in my past lives, I think um I've had a lot of fear of my own power. I've always felt very powerful in this lifetime, but I've been very, very afraid of it. Very afraid of what I can do with it. Because I know when I have set my intentions out for something to happen and it has not always been good, it happens. And that's something that I've had to come to terms with because that's something I've done in the past, in past lives where I've abused my power. I have taken my abilities and I've used them for wrong. And that's something I've had to come to terms with in this life. So it's like I've almost disempowered myself because I'm afraid of what I can do. And I don't want to do that anymore. But it's learning how to let go of the rage
of
filled
course.
power and turn it into something that's powerful but for good.
Yeah. I think facing that and accepting it is amazing. Seeing that you had your past where you were suppressed or had taken advantage and not had, and but then also bringing it forward. This life is huge, where it's complete opposite for me. I was suppressed. I was held back. I couldn't be in my past life's medium. I couldn't be an healer or a connection to the source. I was not able to. I was so many things were literally constricted me to not be my soul's purpose and to not live in my gifts and to be. So that's why for me it was very difficult for me to open up this and to believe that who I was. I was very just under the shadow, I didn't, and then realizing that in this lifetime, I think has just expanded so much, right? We break so many generational curses and so many things from our ancestors to our children that we don't have to suffer in that state. And I just think that's a key element to obviously growing your gifts, right? Like once you realize that, once you bring that forward, your intuition is expanded, your connection, all of that. And of course, we'll go maybe dive deep into the next one of like intuition, because I do want to talk about that whole developing your intuition and how that became for us, because I think that's very important for, I think, our listeners to know that we all have these gifts, we all have this connection, but I think it rises and opens and expands at a certain pivotal point in our lives, and then it's just this huge ascension and bringing us forward of these things that we're like, wow, all this time in our life we knew we had this, we just couldn't use these tools, and now we have these tools to teach and to help, and we're not alone like we thought. We're both, you and I'm sure, have felt excluded and never fit in, and just kind of
Yeah.
I couldn't be around people. I was always uncomfortable. I was always uncomfortable, and I didn't understand why. It was because I was like, am I making this up in my head? Everything feels off. I don't like this person for some reason when I love everyone, but there's something about this person I don't feel right about, but it's me. Everything came back to I'm making it up. It's me. Why am I being this way? What's wrong with me? I should just be able to be around people.
Oh, no, you first.
Um, and I think that's another chapter too, is the whole diving into suppression and substance abuse, and having like this whole I wouldn't say addiction, but having this whole like suppression from connect my internet's unstable. Hopefully it doesn't cut off. But yeah, I think that's a whole nother chapter too, is because we do suppress a lot. But
Yeah, this year has definitely been trusting my intuition because I've always had it. I just ignored the hell out of it, majority of my life. And this year is that's another part of the surrender. It's just trusting my first impressions and not talking myself out of it, not saying, oh, you're just feeling this way. But it's also been, having to separate between what's my ego response and what's actually my intuition, which has been something that I've had to learn a lot this year as well, which you've helped me with.
yeah,
And
observing and not
yeah,
reacting. Yeah.
exactly. And especially with those walks, like I'll have a response and I'll go on the walk. I'm like, okay, let's separate what's actually my intuition and what was just like, a trauma wounded response.
Hmm.
And it's just been so interesting looking back on my growth. And I was like, I was so asleep. Even though I woke up in elementary school, I was still asleep in so many
A
different ways.
different layer. Yeah.
This year, it's just like I'm awake and I keep waking up, and it's just so I have so much calmness and peace compared to last year. It's just astounding, you
That's
know,
amazing.
and that's like my whole journey is to wanting to help people transmute the darkness into light because I feel like that's
Well, that's
something
what you're doing for me.
what I've come to master almost is like I know when I'm in the darkness, I'm like, okay, we're in the darkness.
Yeah.
What are we learning? What's going on? I know I'm gonna get out of it. It may not feel like it right now, but I know I'm gonna get out of it, you
Yeah.
know? Learning to not
And
ignore
we
those.
have to,
I will say when I joined your course, the only thing I had issues with was you said something about anger being like a negative emotion. And I was like, no, anger is good, but it's a certain kind of anger that's
did I
good.
say that?
Yeah, well, not in those direct, but it was like low frequency emotions and
Oh,
anger.
yes. Yes.
I
Well,
was
if you're
like,
constantly living in anger
there's
and
different
you're
kinds of
not
anger.
correct, like if you're constantly coming from an anger response, that is definitely a low frequency.
Yes.
That's going to align you with the exact type of frequency, right? So I think I
I
think
think
anger
it just
is
triggered me
healthy,
because
right?
last year was
Yeah.
nothing, but
Well,
it was
because
like it was a divine rage. It was like my soul has been there's been so much injustice put upon me and I'm angry about it. And I had
yeah,
to
and I think there's a
not
different
suppress it. There's definitely two different kinds.
absolutely, because we can live in anger and just be enraged and not have any
I agree with
compassion,
people.
but we can live in anger and have compassion. There's difference, right? Where I can see the difference of someone that is just living in anger and rage and has zero empathy, zero compassion, or any perspective for anything and humanity versus someone that has anger, because I am learning to live with my anger and to incorporate it into my life and to know that I can honor my anger and not be suppressed, because a lot of my life I was like, oh, anger's negative, anger's bad, you shouldn't be in that state, right? As the light being, it's like you can't have that, and that's totally not right. And I feel like that was something that I overcame, but I feel at the end of the day I can tell if somebody is
Oh
in the
yeah.
state of anger but have
Like flipping
compassion.
everyone off and like yelling, but
Yeah.
like my
Yeah.
anger tested where I've been put in situations that I was so deeply angry with the person, but I was able to process those feelings, allow myself to feel that anger. No, it was okay, and I was justified in feeling that anger. But on the other
Yeah.
side, I was able to look at that person and put myself in their shoes and
Course.
feel the compassion for them, feel the
So
empathy.
that is when you are, yeah, and that is when you are
Forgiveness has
living in,
never been an easy thing for me. So it's learning to be able to forgive and let go has been such a monumental thing that I've been, I guess, tested on this year. And it's just been really astounding seeing the growth compared to last year. Because last year I was just angry, just straight anger.
yeah. So another thing, Ashley, is what you're saying is basically someone that is living in ego, right? Someone that has not learned how to work with their ego. And I think the topic or the module is basically ego dissolving it, right? And if we're not learning how to dissolve our ego, how to work with our ego and our emotions, we're living in an ego state, which is going to be very triggering, which is usually anger. First feeling, what is,
And anger is a cover emotion, you learn in psychology.
course,
Anger is just a blanket on,
everything.
hurt
So
or
many.
pain, whatever,
Yes,
so many different things.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think Yeah, I think that that is really where I'm at too, is just like in embracing that, but also where is it coming from, acknowledging it, bringing it to awareness, and how do I incorporate it? I think another thing too is what we experience, right? Our phases and what our stages are always teaches us something, but I always look at it too as like a selfless act, because what I'm doing is I'm learning in order to help others, right? So my
That's something
journey
I
and my
feel like here.
stage that I'm in, yeah, is going to better other people because I can see that darkness and I can see the light, right? And so I think that's really important when you even work with a mentor or find somebody that you are, um, trying to teach. It's like making sure that you are in that space of being where you're not just, hey, you feel the difference, you can tell where they're coming from.
I've, on TikTok, which is where I found Erica, I had, just seen other different psychics and mediums, and, I just really connected with you. And like there have been some psychics I've connected with, and what they said put a sense of fear of me. It put uncomfort in me, and not in like a good way, not me like facing uncomfort. It put a sense of fear in me that I was like, this isn't right. This doesn't sit right. This doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
It was very much so like this goes against the truth that my soul knows.
Yeah.
And I've never experienced that with you. It's always been, I learned something. I grow from this. I feel lighter after talking to you, never
Well,
worse. Yeah.
thank you. Thank
Like
you.
this is good.
Thank
And
you. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think it's amazing that how the worlds align us, and I look forward to our next talk as we close this one. It's about that time. So, if there's anything you want to end with, I guess, is there anything that you're going through right now that you want to share, maybe today or this past week before we close?
Really, I feel like, I'm in a state where I'm trying to find my purpose, and what do I do with all this knowledge and all this experience that I've accumulated? Where do I want to take it? What do I want to do with it? And I feel like this podcast is really a good baby step for me to moving into that direction of leading and helping other people and feeling confident enough to do so.
Yeah, so giving you that opportunity to explore new avenues. I think sometimes too, just being vulnerable and opening up and sharing our stories really helps, finding that path too for where you want to go. Because again, there's so many people out there that have a story similar, or if not, can relate to half of yours or mine. And I think it's just important to be in that space to be able to help, because I think that was one thing that I struggled with, was sharing my story, because we don't have judgment, right? We're in a non-judgment space. We're in a space of helping and healing humanity, and being there in heart center. And I think it's important to know that when you're reaching out and when you're connecting. So
Yeah. And I feel like, I love our podcast title. We kind of came to it because, you and I are both on opposite but the same paths where, I'm learning how to bring in more joy and light into my life, and you're learning how to accept the darkness in your life, and we're both learning to kind of harness these different aspects of ourselves that we don't have a lot of experience with, that will also help other people because, on my journey has been such a lonely journey, like stupid lonely, like, and I feel like this podcast is will help people to not feel so lonely. And that's the most important thing, is joining
and
people
you too.
not feeling, yeah, me too, and not feeling lonely. And I feel like it's funny, I do a tarot spread, a year spread for myself, and I did one back in January, and my card for this month is the Hermit in reverse. So it's coming out of my hermit journey and putting myself out there, as uncomfortable as it makes me.
Or
But, it's something that I know I need to do, and that's my next step in this whole process.
I completely agree. I think being out of our comfort zone helps us grow. That's really how we learn. Always stepping into the unknown is really powerful. If it doesn't challenge us, then we're not learning. So, but yeah, it was so nice talking with you. And we will be back, I guess, talking about whatever spiritual things rise, possibly the intuition. I would love to share some insight on developing intuition, how that worked for us, and what modalities and stuff that we use to expand and really kind of going through that and what works best for us and kind of opening that portal of intuition. So, yeah, thank you. So I hope everyone has a blessed day and we will be back. Bye.